So it appears that the SBU has foiled an assassination attempt on Zelensky's life. This is not the first. It certainly will not be the last. So this woman pictured here was gathering information about where Zelensky was, about his movements. And let me just read a couple paragraphs. I'll read another few paragraphs in the next article, and then I'll tie things together for you. Ukraine's security service claims to have foiled a plot to assassinate the country's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, after the arrest of a woman suspected of gathering intelligence about his movement. More than 400 Russian mercenaries, now this is rolling back the clock to the beginning of the war, more than 400 Russian mercenaries from the Wagner Group were reported to have been in Kyiv in February of 2022 with orders to kill Zelensky as part of a decapitation strategy. So this has been ongoing, although it was most pronounced at the very beginning of the war. The security services alleged that the suspect was helping Russia prepare a massive airstrike on the Mykolaiv region. So when he traveled, the idea, it wasn't like, let's snipe at him, it wasn't let's poison him, it was when he travels, let's have a huge airstrike that just kills him and whoever's traveling with him. That's actually a pretty intelligent way for Russia to try to do something like this. If they can figure out where he's moving, then they would be able to do that. The SBU said that though individual tried to establish the time and list of locations of the approximate route of the head of state in the territory of the region, agents had obtained information about the subversive activities of the suspects and subsequently introduced additional security measures. So they were onto her and they figured out what she was trying to do and why. Here's a CNN article talking about the same thing. Ukraine says it's foiled an assassination attempt or assassination plot against Zelensky. An alleged informant for Russia has been detained in connection to a plot to assassinate Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. SBU said that she had been gathering intelligence about Zelensky's planned visit to Mykolaiv at the end of July in order to plan a Russian airstrike to kill the president. So this is something that has happened already. This is just being announced right now. So he's not like in any more danger today than he was yesterday or anything along those lines. He's still in danger, but it's not like a crucial or acute thing. The SBU said that it caught the woman red-handed as she was trying to pass intelligence to the Russians. Okay, so if you roll the clock back to February of 2022, Zelensky faced several known attempts on his life since Russia launched its full-scale invasion. Russian special forces were tasked with eliminating the Ukrainian president at the start of the war. The idea was, if you kill off Zelensky, it'll all fall apart. And there might have been some truth to that, because Zelensky's firm stance, I need ammunition, not a ride, really, by the way, that's the title of this book here, and you can see it and get all the background information and the early days of the war all the way through about the summer of 2022. In 2022, Time magazine described how Russian troops had parachuted into Kyiv to kill or capture Zelensky and his family on February 24th, the day after the war began. It didn't work so well. He's still alive. He made it. He was protected. As Ukrainian forces fought Russians on the streets of Kyiv, the Presidential Guard tried to seal the compound using police barricades and piles of plywood. That doesn't sound too secure to me, but okay, they did protect him. Military intelligence veterans said rifles and bulletproof vests were handed out to Zelensky and about a dozen aides as Russian troops made 2 attempts to storm the presidential compound. That's pretty severe. Zelensky ignored his bodyguard's advice to flee the compound and also refused the offers of British and American forces to evacuate him. He responded with the famous line, "I need ammunition, not a ride." Later, Zelensky walked outside the compound to film a defiant video message on his phone as Ukrainian troops battled Russians in nearby streets. That video really stiffened the spine of Ukrainians. They were already active and working and trying to stop, but this had to be very morally morale-raising, encouraging to Ukrainians. That it sent a clear message about what they were supposed to do. Ukrainian presidential advisor Mikhailo Poladek said in March last year that Zelensky had survived more than a dozen assassination attempts. Foreign sources talk about 2 or 3 attempts. He said, "I believe that there have been more than a dozen such attempts." That's pretty significant. Now, what would happen if Zelensky was, God forbid, I don't want this to happen, but what would happen if Zelensky was assassinated? Well, that was a topic of a political article about a week ago. Ukraine's plan if Russia assassinates Zelensky. And so they were talking about this very thing, not, I don't think, knowing about this current plot that was just revealed. And Zelensky said, "If I were thinking about it constantly, I would just shut myself down, very much like Putin now, who doesn't leave his bunker," the Ukrainian leader said in an interview with CNN last month. "Of course, my bodyguard should think how to prevent this from happening, and this is their task. I don't think about it." He doesn't have the bandwidth to think about that with everything else going on. He has to trust in his bodyguards. So what was really interesting about this was that there's a difference. Putin seems to think that if he could just kill Zelensky, maybe something else would break his way. But I think that would actually do the opposite. It's kind of like he thinks he can bomb Ukrainians into submitting and saying, "Oh no, we don't want to be bombed anymore." No, they're now angry, and generational hatred has grown between Russia and Ukraine because of the way that Putin has treated them. So if you could kill Zelensky, and I hope that doesn't happen, I think he's bigger than ever. He goes down like a Gandhi kind of figure, a Churchillian kind of figure for rest of time. But I don't think that it's going to change much on the ground. Somebody else within the administration will come to power who will then carry on and keep moving that direction, and it'll stiffen the resolve of the Ukrainian people. Now, this was a really interesting paragraph because it talks about the difference between what happens to a democratically elected leader as opposed to what if you could kill Putin? That's a different question. If you kill an authoritarian or an autocrat, you have a lot more volatility. Let me read this. History offers some reassurance too. Kremlin plotters would do well to read a data-driven paper written by academics Benjamin Jones and Benjamin Olkin for America's National Bureau of Economic Research on the effect on institutions and war of the 59 assassinations of national leaders that took place between 1875 and 2004. Quote, "Assassinations of autocrats produce substantial changes in the country's institutions, while assassinations of Democrats do not," they concluded. So were you to actually assassinate Zelensky, the leader of a democratic nation, it wouldn't actually change much, except for stiffen the resolve of the people there. I mean, as far as the trajectory of the war. Now, if you were to assassinate someone like Putin, who is an autocratic leader in a informational autocracy, it could play havoc with the place. And let's not kid ourselves. If Zelensky was assassinated, the SBU would be moving heaven and earth to assassinate Putin. Okay, that's what you need to know about the assassination attempt of Zelensky. It's not like he's, in danger at the moment any more than he was before, but that's the background. The idea was to call some kind of airstrike based on his movements, and apparently the intelligence is all over it. Okay. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine. I'll be back tomorrow. I hope you will be too.